Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Cote, and I work with Friends Health Connection, a nonprofit organization that focuses on helping those with autoimmune disorders and/or chronic illness. We strive to help survivors find support, education, and inspiration to lead healthy and meaningful lives. And today I'm here with Joe Revello, a multiple sclerosis survivor. And Joe, in case any of our listeners are unfamiliar with you or what multiple sclerosis is, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself as well as your journey?
Yes. My name is Joe Revello, as Brittany has said. I was diagnosed in 1995 with MS. And how I was diagnosed was I was actually playing racquetball, and all of a sudden I had difficulty moving my legs. At that point, I was taken to the hospital, and many had thought that I had had a heart attack or stroke. But at that point, they did some testing, and I was diagnosed at that point with MS. Mm-hmm. For a few years, I actually did quite well. Not much difficulty, but in the year 2000, I had a major exacerbation. I was not able to move any part of my body actually above my head. I actually became sort of paralyzed. Was admitted to the hospital, and at that point received doses of steroids. The steroids got me out of the exacerbation, but I was not able to return. Many of my functions did not return. I needed to learn how to walk again. I needed how to do basic things again. So I spent quite a few months in rehab, relearning how to walk, relearning how to acquaint myself with doing things that normally I had done before without any problems. At that point, I was kind of started to walk, had difficulty walking. As years went by, I went from a cane to crutches. And at the point with the crutches were very, very difficult for me to ambulate on. And at some point, I was going to need something else to walk with. And I did a lot of research on walking devices, and at that point, I discovered something called an Linker. Mm-hmm. And a Linker is actually a walking bike. It gives me my balance back, and I discovered that in March of 2014. And ever since I discovered the Linker, the quality of my life has improved tremendously.
That's great. So could you give us a little bit of insight onto what your everyday routine is like, and how do you start your day living with MS?
Okay, it's kind of funny. I was actually looking at that question, and I was sitting here this morning having breakfast, which would be kind of normal, waking up, seeing how I would feel. Today's a good day. The bell rang. Well, the bell ringing could present problems for me because I walk in the house. I walk with a quad cane because, as I said, I have difficulty walking. By the time I got to the doorbell, the person was gone. Fortunately for me, it was the PSC&G to me, the reader, and I was able to walk outside and yell at the guy to please come back. A good thing that happened was he realized that I was disabled, and he said to me, "I'm going to note in your file that we need to give you a few minutes to get to the door, to answer the door." So that was good news. Something was accomplished today, but it's things like that. And actually, for this phone call as well, something funny. I know we're getting ready for the 12 o'clock phone call. One thing I had to do was I had to make sure that I went to the bathroom. Because I didn't want to interrupt the phone call, that if I had a bladder issue, because I also had things happening there. So it's really difficult to say what a typical morning is because many things could happen during the morning or during the day that I guess never happened before when things were different, when I did not have MS. I never would think of these things. I never would think that I had a plan for the doorbell to ring. I had a plan to be on a phone call and make sure I wouldn't be interrupted by a bladder situation. So there are many things that have to be thought of dealing with a chronic condition.
Mm-hmm.
And the day I would hope would start off as many, as a day as someone living without a chronic condition, but it does not. My MS plays a role 24/7, good or bad.
Mm-hmm. And it's great that you bring that up, because I feel like a lot of people who don't have chronic illness don't realize that every day and every morning, even every hour or minute, could be different, because living with a chronic illness, it's almost forever depending on what type you have. And there's no really normal or kind of consistency when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed at night. So I feel like that's a really great point that you brought up. And it's also kind of important to talk about if you think there are kind of goals that you like to set for yourself, whether that's a daily goal, monthly, or yearly. So if there are any goals that you are trying to accomplish at the moment, or there are any goals that you have accomplished, whether they were planned or not planned at all.
My goal quite a few years ago was for me to find a walking device that would not make me feel bad about myself. Now that is probably an ego thing, which I will admit, but I found much difficulty with me trying to use a walker for a variety of reasons. One reason being was it didn't give me the balance that I needed. And I was really kind of bent over. It presented more challenges for me than anything else, and I really didn't want to use it. And there was a point in time when I got a little depressed over the situation, because I did not want to go into a scooter or a wheelchair, because I didn't want to lose whatever muscle tone or whatever I had. I felt that really would not be the best thing for me. So I for 2 years, I searched the internet for something, and I found this, and actually, my wife and I took a trip to the Netherlands without knowing anything about this device. We had no idea. We saw a prototype online, and the inventor was in the Netherlands. And my wife said, we're going to the Netherlands, because if this could make a difference in your life, it's worth the trip. And the worst that could happen is we had the vacation to the Netherlands. So that was always a goal for me. And once I found it, it changed my life, but it changed my perspective on things as well. And it also made me more aware of things. And actually, I am an advocate now. I'm so involved in things now with devices and trying to help people to actually do more of themselves than they possibly can. I could not walk more than 50 to 100 feet with crutches. I can now walk 3, 4, and 5 miles.
That's amazing.
With the Elenker. It completely changed our lives, not just my life, my family's life, my friend's life, anybody that I meet. It changed my perspective on things. And I kind of feel bad sometimes, because it sounds like I'm putting down walkers and things like that. But you know what? It's what works for you that matters. And I'm not, putting it down, but it wasn't right for me. And it took a lot of effort, but in that, I am now such an advocate for things. My wife and I actually, we contributed and linked it to a rehab facility in the Netherlands. That my wife and I were so happy of finding something. We're actually part of the company now, and we try to spread the word for people not to give up in their search for anything, not just the Elenker. No matter what you're trying to do, if there's something that you really have a passion for or need to find, it's up to you to find it.
That's really great.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Keep going.
No. I ramble sometimes, but it was such a game changer for me that I just I find it hard to believe, things as simple as being able to go somewhere and be able to actually not worry about falling. My biggest fear was I was going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
That fear has completely disappeared with me using an linker.
Mm-hmm.
I can't fall because I'm sitting down and my legs are on the ground. So
that's great.
Go ahead.
So from what you're saying, it sounds like your wife really supports you a lot, which is amazing. And I think it's also amazing that you've found this alternative to help you walk that a lot of people with MS or even those without MS haven't heard of, because I know I personally have never heard of an linker until knowing you. So something I want to ask you is, other than your wife, or you can still give other examples of your wife, but where have you received support, and how has that helped you during your journey? It could be familial, friendships, support groups, anything like that.
Well, actually, the first thing I would have to mention is the MS support group.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Moving Forward MS support group in at the Metro chapter of the MS Society.
Mm-hmm.
I met these people. Actually, I met one person 10 years ago, and the support. Not that I'm not in the support group 10 years, but one of the people I met 10 years ago in another group, and they've actually been a great source of support.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great support group. We share ideas. My wife and I actually become good friends with a couple that we're like great friends now. So it extended our world, and it's just a great group of people to share ideas with. People in different situations, to be able to offer them support, which is key to people. I mean, not everyone's in the same physical condition. There are some people that don't have any obvious signs of MS, and we have people that are in wheelchairs. So the group runs the gamut of different disabilities, but it just is so important to be able to speak with people about what you're going through or what they're experiencing, and it's a great way of learning things. And they've been super. I also am very active with Team Tisch. Team Tisch is part of the Tisch MS Center in New York, and I become a team member, supporting them, because what they do, it's a bunch of individuals, and they're all dedicated to, we support cutting-edge research that is headed by a Dr. Sadiq, who's now involved with stem cell research. I've become part of that team. And what the team does is we raise money for the research center, because they're working on some stuff that could really, really help many of us with secondary and primary progressive MS. And in the MS world, secondary and primary progressive MS in past years has not had large funding. It's basically been ignored a lot. But now with stem cells, it seems to be getting its due. So it's very important to support efforts like this, because there are many people out there that really don't have much hope right now, because there really aren't any of the disease-modifying drugs. There's really not much for that type of MS. So that's important for me to be part of, because it makes me feel that I'm part of something. And if I could help in any way, I want to.
And that's also something we really believe here at Friends Health Connection. Since we offer support groups, it's something that people don't realize is so crucial, especially with those who have any kind of chronic conditions. Support is so necessary, and it's sad, but some people don't receive that kind of support from their friends and family. So other than support groups or the Alenker bike like you mentioned, do you have any tips or advice for others that are surviving MS?
One thing I think, and I just want to say something here. I don't really like the word surviving.
Mm-hmm.
I like the word living with MS.
Living.
I like the word living versus surviving. Surviving to me has, I don't know, it's me, but to me it has negative connotations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like living with MS, and the fact that the tips for people, living with MS is really to, it's difficult at the beginning because I went through a period of time where I probably was in denial.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to deal with it, but a word of advice is the sooner you accept it and the sooner you look for, education and getting, knowledge about what you're going through, you will be much better off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you could really initiate it and get out there and get a doctor. What's very important is, and this is super important, is to have a doctor you trust.
Mm-hmm.
I went through, I would say, 6 or 7 neurologists. So I found the one that I could relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes all the difference in the world. It's someone you can talk with and share things with. Because you need that relationship, because this disease is very, very, has a lot of complications. And you really want to have faith in your doctor that, you believe in what he's recommending for you.
Mm-hmm.
And also, too, the support groups are super. It's the words of advice is accepting the situation and dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. And that is a great piece of advice. So kind of going off of that, what is your favorite inspirational quote, saying, idea, or is there anyone that you personally look to inspiration while living with MS?
Okay, my mantra is Maya Angelou. I'm going to paraphrase.
Mm-hmm.
People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I find that's my mantra. It's how people make you feel. And I know living with a chronic illness, there are times when people, I didn't feel so good about myself. But it's important that, you feel good and you surround yourself with people that make you feel good about yourself, rather than the naysayers, I should say. I mean, I don't have the same group of people from my initial diagnosis. I try to surround myself with positive things, rather than, I'm not the disease. I'm a person living with a chronic condition that, I'm still the person that I was, just, a little different now, and I want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just important for me to be surrounded or deal with people that are positive.
Mm-hmm. So like you mentioned, positivity is definitely something that's so important, especially when living with a chronic condition. And you previously mentioned Moving Forward MS Support Group and Team Tisch. But are there any other organizations that you participate in or that you really love, or groups that are dedicated to help those with MS and or even just chronic illness in general?
Actually, there is a group that my wife and I just got involved with called Spur. It's Special People United to Ride.
Mm-hmm.
And these deal with many children with muscular dystrophy, severe autism, and it's horses. It's therapeutic riding. And my wife and I just got involved with it last year, and it's such a great group that we've become fundraisers for them. And it's just, once again, it's not. Now there are people with MS that are part of the group, but it's people children dealing with chronic illnesses, and we just probably about a year now that we're involved with that. It's a super group of people, and we get a lot of pleasure out of that.
Yeah, I'm also familiar with Spur, and something great. It's not just children; it's also there's veterans I know and older people who also ride the horses as well. And it's a really great organization that helps really anyone, not with just chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, or things like that. It's a great organization that really helps out. And just to kind of conclude things and wrap things up for our listeners, if there's one thing you would want everyone to know about MS or chronic illness in general, what would it be?
You are not your illness.
Mm.
I mean, that's basically it. And that may take time to realize that you're not your illness. You're a person dealing with an illness. It can't be, it's tough to say it, but it's just part of who you are as anything else. And it's really learning to deal with it. And hopefully someday society will understand that we are part of the society. We're not, we're not a peripheral. We're all in this together. And I think really that is going to be very important for the future because dealing with it, we really don't want to be treated as special. I think we want to be treated as equals. And that sometimes isn't easy, but it should be. Because we're just, we may be a little, different, but we're all part of society. And I would just like everybody to know that not to think of yourself anything less because you're not.
That's a great way to conclude this segment. Thank you so much, Joe, for letting our listeners tune in and sharing your wisdom and your experience with us.
Thank you.